Hi guys, welcome to Unapologetic. Happy Thursday. Today we're going to be talking about a little bit of a different subject matter. I saw this viral TikTok of a young woman being asked about body count. For those of you who don't know what body count is, it's how many people you've slept with before being with your current partner. So a guy was asking this girl, should men be able to ask about your body count? Is it something that they should care about? And she had a really interesting response, to say the least. Let's get into it.
Young Apollo with the
All right, so let's talk about this subject today. It's not a subject that we typically talk about on the show because we're not really concerned about things like this. But with modern day feminism and those sort of narratives circulating in the younger generation, body count is something that is often talked about. We are having discussions about sexual promiscuity, about how many people women sleep with, whether or not it's an issue for women who sleep with a lot of men, and whether or not men should be privy to that sort of information. Modern day feminists might tell you it doesn't matter, you shouldn't care, and he shouldn't ask because it shouldn't affect the way that he views you. And I think there is maybe a point to be made there, but we're going to get into this discussion. Let's watch this TikTok first.
Why do you think men care about a woman's body count?
Do you? People actually care about that shit?
Men in general.
If a man is asking my body count, he can get
Wow.
Who gives a Oh my god, that's so stupid. People actually ask that shit?
Yes.
Okay, well then you're talking to the wrong men.
She's got a mouth on her, by the way. Like, I cuss, but damn.
If a man is ever asking about your body count, you're talking to the wrong man, and he can get like, that's so stupid.
So can I ask you this then?
Yeah, sure.
So, what do you think about the analogy? If one key can open many locks, it's known as a master key.
Oh, goodness.
As opposed to if you have a lock that can be opened by any key, it's a shitty lock.
Okay, let's pause there for a second and delve into that analogy for a second. His analogy is basically saying that women are the lock and men are the key. A lock that can be opened by any key, meaning many men can sleep with you, is a really bad lock. But a key that can open any lock, or a man that can sleep with any woman, is a master key. I don't agree with that analogy at all. But we're going to get into that discussion about whether or not the body count conversation is a two-way conversation or if it's a one-way conversation. I can see the arguments that people make for both. And this girl's argument is certainly very interesting. They can get effed, according to her.
I think that if a woman is an analogy to you, then you're not ready to be talking to a woman, and you should probably get So, if a woman is the key to you, talk to your mom. Talk to your sister, talk to your cousin. I don't know. Get a real life. And get Thank you.
Wow. And a woman
is not a key.
Well, yeah, he wasn't saying the woman is the key. She didn't even get the analogy.
Yeah, she definitely just misunderstood the whatever.
Oh, that's awkward. Anyways, this has 1.1 million likes on it, which I'm assuming means that for 1.1 million people, this girl's words resonated with them pretty heavily.
It would appear so, yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about it, okay? Because whether you like it or not, this is a discussion that people are going to have. You're going to get into a relationship with a guy or with a woman, and they're going to be like, hey, how many people have you been in a relationship with before? And how far did you go in that relationship? And I could see from a strong feminist perspective why that would not be a question that maybe you would care about, or maybe it's a question you would be offended by because sex only means so much, and why should it matter how many people I've slept with because I'm with you now and it doesn't say anything about myself. But in my opinion, I think body count is something that both men and women should be a little concerned about when it comes to dating somebody. I'm not saying it needs to be your end-all, be-all, or you have to have a certain number that's a deal breaker when you're dating somebody, but it's perfectly plausible to me that you may be concerned about how many people your partner has slept with. And not because it makes you particularly disgusting as a woman or as a man, but there's just important conversations that are attached to that. It speaks to how you value yourself, what you value when it comes to relationships, whether or not sex is a major thing for you or something that you feel like can be quite frivolous and can be thrown around. It speaks to how intimate you've gotten with many different people. And we can act like those things don't matter, and we can take the feminist perspective on things and go, well, why should it care? Why should we care? Men can be sexually promiscuous. Why can't I be sexually promiscuous? And why is it different when I do it? We can act like those statements are true, but they're not true. And men care about it. Women care about it as well. And I think our culture is shifting a little bit. Like I see young women being like, oh, I want a man who's more experienced. The more women that he's been with, the better for me. I'm not sure I agree with you. Again, I understand the sentiment. I understand what you're trying to communicate by saying that, but it's really not better. It's really not better. Is this something that you've been concerned about in dating? You're married now, of course. Was this ever a discussion?
I mean, it's like we knew the information about each other, and it is a relevant thing. You should date someone and seek to be with someone who generally shares your values. If you're going to be in a long-term relationship or marriage with someone, then that is it. It is relevant to know or discuss like prior sexual activity, or just more generally, like what is your attitude towards sex? What's your and it's not that I need this detailed history or anything, but it's just I need to understand where you are in your values with regard to sex and sexuality, and I think that that's relevant for lots of reasons. Right. So the idea that it's just facially insulting or wrong to go there is just it's silly. And it concerns me that this is resonating with so many people in our culture, because I think you should care.
You should. It's, as much as we want to say it's not something to just be thrown around or be taken lightly, or something that you shouldn't be asked about or you should be offended by. These are decisions that you've made that directly affect the person that you're with. And we can argue that they don't affect the person that you're with. It's in the past, but it does, and it can. And it does speak to what you value as a person. And I'm not saying you should sleep with nobody or wait till marriage or all these different things. I'm not going to make a prescription for what you should do with your life. Make the choices you want to make. Sleep with who you want to sleep with. But to think that that's not information that you should give your partner, or you should view your partner as lesser because he asked for that information, is BS. And especially when we are growing up in a particularly sexually promiscuous generation of people. You don't know like what they've been engaged in, what type of stuff is going around, and to take this hardcore feminist view of, oh, he shouldn't have to know and it shouldn't affect anything, by just ignoring the logistics of the situation, I think is ridiculous. And there are going to be people who don't care, and you could come to them with a body count that you're like 22 years old and it's 50 people, and they'll be like, okay, cool, I just wanted to know. But there's also going to be men and women who look at those numbers and go, yeah, not for me.
Right.
I'm sorry.
And that's the point, is if you want someone who doesn't care about that, then sure, find someone who doesn't care. Then you found someone who shares your values and has the same mentality about relationships and sexual background and how relevant that is or whatever. But the idea that you can't even ask, that it's somehow inherently bad to ask or care for anybody, it's like, no, who are you to say how someone else should select their mate or select who they want to be with?
Right.
It's the reverse logic. It's the idea is you're being more open and you're being more progressive by having this, but really you're shaming people who want to know and want to factor that in to the math of how they're going to choose who they want to be with.
Right. And the irony of her saying like, get effed, when he's like, no. I'm asking you how often you've done that.
Interesting word choice. Yeah.
Interesting word choice. And I feel like you would only be defensive about it if your number's kind of high. Like, I feel like I can't imagine any other reason to get such a like vitriolic reaction.
Yeah, she was on that very suspiciously quickly. Not that I care, again, but it's like,
not that I care, but your reaction was a little
aggressive.
strong, and I get it. Some people just do it to like virtue signal and be like, I'm a feminist. Why should you care? Why should he ask me those types of things? You're disgusting. But it sounded like your number might be a little high. I mean, maybe he doesn't even need the number, because your response to the question was enough to like give me a little bit of a viewpoint into what your life might be like.
Yeah.
But guys, as much as people want to tell you that it doesn't matter and that you can throw it around and that nobody should care about the number. These are real world experiences and it's real world intimacy. Like it's a very intimate thing to do with. And again, I'm not prescribing anything. I'm not saying wait till marriage or don't engage with people who you want to engage with because that would not be my place as an individual. You do whatever you want and you do what you see fit and do what it is that represents your values. But people should be able to ask you about it, girl. So I don't want to hear any like women. Also, it affects your relationship in more ways than just allowing somebody to speak about their values. I was reading the other day that apparently women who have slept with like 5 or more men before getting married actually have a higher rate of divorce statistically and are more likely to leave their relationships.
Yeah, that's not surprising to me at all.
No. So it's not just something that's like, oh, you're just a conservative, so you're saying it's important. It actually has like a real world effect on people. And it actually can speak to the longevity of your relationship if that's something that you're concerned about, whether or not it's going to lead to marriage, whether or not marriage leads to divorce. So plenty of good reasons why both men and women, I want to stress that, both men and women, because it's not some sort of master key for the lock. Maybe I get with all these women and they're bad locks or whatever. Takes 2 to tango, buddy. You both should probably want to know that information.
Right. I want to get more like your thoughts on the illustration that he used. As you said, you disagreed with it in the sense that it says that. What is it? A man? Can you explain it again? The master key?
Yeah. So a man who sleeps with a lot of women is technically a key that's been in a lot of locks. So he's a master key because you can open up any lock with that key. But a lock that can be opened by multiple keys and by other men is a bad lock. Right. Which obviously you can understand how that analogy was born because you're just thinking of the imagery of the situation. But it's really not the same. You guys would both be locks in the situation, in my opinion. Now, there are people like the Andrew Tates of the world and these like super alpha male podcaster people who say, well, it's different. And in ways, I do agree. And feminists will disagree with me on this. I do think sex is different for men than it is for women. I think there is an increased attachment when it comes to women with sex. And we can act like there isn't and say, no, I don't care at all. It doesn't mean anything to me. It's not intimate. It's just something that I choose to do. I like to have fun. But it's not the case. Women do get more attached just on a biological level. Men grow up and have hormones that tell them, go out and conquer as many women as you possibly can, have sex with as many women as you possibly can, and actually like their brains are, even when they're in long-term relationships, are still like scanning and wanting for something new, whereas women have a more intimate connection and intimate bond when it comes to those things and are more fine with being with one person and being attached to that one person. Now people can argue and say that that's wrong or whatever, but that has just been what I've recognized.
Yeah, and I think that's where the conflation of those biological realities that you just mentioned with some sort of patriarchy is really where the confusion sets in and where the argument kind of breaks down, because you're refusing to acknowledge that men and women are inherently different. And like generally speaking, any man will want to sleep with as many women as possible. They're way less selective, and there are biological reasons for that. There's like evolutionary psychology. You could go into that. Like it's trying to procreate, and like Jordan Peterson talks about how you have more female ancestors than male ancestors because not every male procreates, and almost all women do, historically speaking. And there's plenty of biological, historical understanding that we have about why women are the ones who get to be selective because they're in higher demand. And that plays into, even in modernity, when you have relationships and dating, the impetus is kind of on women to be the ones who are selective, and men are just not. And so that informs that lock and key thing that's kind of rooted in that. And to act like, no, all these society is a blank slate, everyone starts in the exact same place, men and women are exactly the same, but there's an unfair, the only reason for this lock and key type of thinking is because of an unfair or double standard that for women it's just short-sighted, and it's not acknowledging the full context, and it leads to a cavalier attitude about sex that can end up making you more miserable and hurt in the way that you live your life, which again, you like Amala and I both have said, like, do what you want to do. But to your point is you can running with some of these attitudes and having cavalier attitude about sex can end up having worse outcomes for you in relationships long term and have worse happiness. And so it's the classic of delayed gratification. Sometimes doing the wise thing has a longer term payoff.
Yeah, and I think these things flip in so many ways. You have like this ultra feminist view of it doesn't matter at all, do whatever you want, and then you have what I will call a patriarchal view, and I think it is a view that has been expressed by the likes of like Andrew Tate, Sneeko, that women cheat, but men don't cheat. Men just have sex with other people. But when women cheat, it's real cheating. When men do it, it's not real cheating. And I've heard that expressed, and it's stupid. It is stupid. So you have the polar opposites on each side saying these two different things, all to really gain what is, I think, to be instant gratification and to accept maybe their own wrongdoings and then chastise the other people who do different things. But what you have in the middle is just the facts of the matter. And the facts of the matter are you're going to have better outcomes the less people that you sleep with. I'm not saying it needs to be one. I'm not saying it needs to be, I'm not going to give you a number. You'll have better outcomes in terms of if you want a long-term relationship and a long-term marriage. That's how you get the best outcome there. Women are increasingly looking at the top 20% of men, while men are looking at like the 60% of women, 80% of women. And they've done studies on this where having men and women swipe on Tinder and on all these different dating apps, and men will just be like, yes, 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 yes. And women go, oh no, he's got a fish in the picture. No. No, he's got a picture with another female, and like super selective in how they choose. And of course, because if a man gets you pregnant, guess what? You're a woman, you're pregnant, that's your baby, and it's not going anywhere. Men can go off and get as many people pregnant as they really want, and really don't have to do much outside of what is now our legal system and the court system. But in the past, could have impregnated as many women as they wanted and gone and ran around and did nothing about it. So we as women have to be more selective. And I'm just waiting, in 40, 50 years when all of this plays out and the sexual promiscuity plays out. What are the repercussions of it? How many broken homes do we have? How many broken women do we have who just like fell for this hook, line, and sinker, gave their body their body up to people in tried to convince themselves that it was nothing, but just psychologically and biologically cannot run from the fact that it is not nothing. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you should be in a world where you could take wisdom's word for it and do the wise thing and have the better outcomes, because
it's hard.
Yeah,
nobody does it. I haven't done it. I've been like, regret that decision.
Yeah, I think we all do. That's part of learning. And but yeah, I wonder if we're going to end up in a place in society where we are finding our way back to these original values that we started with, just by having hit rock bottom in outcomes and in people being miserable and having terrible relationships, and then rediscovering that, it is kind of wise to be selective, and men and women are different, and there is a better way to go about having relationships. I think that, we're going to have to end up there, because I think it's something that everyone does want. People want relationships, people want love, people want sex. But there are more wise ways to go about that. And there are, like you said, facts on the ground about how men are, how women are, and trying to ignore those or just whatever we're doing now.
It's not working.
It's just not it.
Whatever we're on right now is just not the pill to be on. Anyways, guys, those are my thoughts on that. I don't know if there's any other avenues to explore this through. I'm trying to think of just making sure we hit the nail on the head with this one, because I don't know that I'll ever revisit the discussion of body counts, but it's important for both involved in the relationship, and it can just be a passing conversation. It's not something that has to completely flip your world on its head, but it's maybe something that you should know. And I think that's it. Guys, please like, subscribe, click the notification bell to be notified every single time we post a new video, and fill out the survey down below. Let me know your thoughts on the show, what subject matters we should be covering, what guests you want to see on, what you don't want to see us cover, and how you would like to see the channel change, because we want your input. Plus, you'll give us your email at the end, and you'll be signed up for the Unapologetic mailing list. You'll be the first to know when the clothing line drops. You'll be the first to get our Discord. What else do you get? Oh my gosh, an exclusive once-a-month video every month that I put out for you, that only people on the email list can watch. So fill out the survey, sign up for the email list, and thank you so much for watching. maybe if you're in a relationship, get a quick check on that body count. And then
Hopefully you already know,
hopefully you already know.
depending on how far along you are.
But get that body count, maybe make a quick assessment. Bye, guys.